Today's invitation to celebrate the Irish holiday of St. Patrick's Day was accepted by the Ambassador of the Republic of Ireland to Slovakia, His Excellency Ian Devine. We warmly welcome you to the Faculty of Education of Trnava University in Trnava.
Ian, it's been a few months since you've been in your position in the Slovak Republic. Sort of, how are you fitting in, and how do you find your time here in Slovakia, and how are you blending in? What do you appreciate about the culture and your time here?
Yeah, so I've been here in Slovakia since August 2025. I've come here with my wife and my son Eddie, who's 12 years old. Um, I'd been previously posted in Prague and in Vienna, so we came here with our eyes wide open in terms of, I think, our kind of cultural expectations. But nevertheless, even still, I mean, even more positive than we expected. Really feeling extremely comfortable. We often speak of Ireland as a country of we have the Céad Míle Fáilte, the 100,000 welcomes. But I've really felt that warmth also from the Slovak people here. And as I say, I think it's we are, let's say, two countries, Slovakia and Ireland, that are, I think, almost identical in population size, and even geographically, in terms of our geographical size. A difference between being an island and a landlocked country, perhaps, and at different ends of Europe. But I think at an individual level and in terms of the human context, the people to people and cultural, I think, styles and commonalities, I think there's an awful lot there. And we've been made to feel very welcome. The country's incredibly beautiful. I'm delighted to be here in Trnava. Obviously, we're based in Bratislava with the embassy and with where we live on a day-to-day basis. But I mean, incredible scenery in this country. And while my primary role now is, of course, to promote Ireland here in the Slovak Republic, I think when I eventually return home again, you will also have an ambassador for Slovakia. I think when I return home, and I think that's what all of this travel and collaboration between EU partners is about. I think we begin by advocating for ourselves, but I think we begin to advocate for ourselves, everybody collectively, and also for all of the wonderful cultural experiences and contacts that we've made when we travel abroad.
And today at Trnava University, we've been celebrating St. Patrick's Day, and last night the building was turning green. So today Trnava University is turning green. How did you find the St. Patrick's Day celebration? How did you find your time here at our faculty? How did you find the time with the students?
Well, it's incredibly humbling. I mean, I think first of all, I mean, Aaron, you're doing a fantastic job here, obviously, in terms of promoting Irish culture through lecturing in our culture and our literature, and I think that's part, at an academic level of a much wider community of Irish academics, and indeed non-Irish academics, who are teaching Irish literature and Irish culture throughout universities throughout Europe and throughout the world globally, and I think that, as a starting point, is an incredible resource for us as Ireland in sort of, I think in particular, academic contacts, I think are really the sustainable contacts. I think, cultural events and music performances all play a part of building awareness of our culture abroad. But I always feel there's something particularly special around academic cooperation, as I say, because it's because of the depth and the duration over which that kind of engagement, I suppose, evolves. But I mean, I think here, and I really appreciate, of course, that the university has gone green today as well, and all of the students who really were so enthusiastic to share our National Day with us. When I spoke with them, I was kind of sharing with them, of course, that it is our National Day, but it is, I think, a National Day that has been in many parts shaped by our huge diaspora abroad. We calculate approximately 70 million people globally who are of Irish descent or have a cultural connection with Ireland. There are parades and celebrations of St. Patrick's Day globally. Of course, in America, where, like Slovakia, Ireland has a very strong diaspora community, but also across Europe as well. And again, it's really very nice to be on a podcast here with various European partners as well. I am sure in whatever capitals and countries that we are speaking with now, there also have been St. Patrick's Day celebrations on the ground. And it's obviously a matter of diaspora relations and our culture, that's an incredibly important part of it. But then outwards from Ireland, harnessing that energy and that sort of enthusiasm and willingness to engage with Ireland, we then take this opportunity to engage with our global partners. Effectively, all of the Irish cabinet, the government, travel abroad. I think to over 50 countries on this occasion on St. Patrick's Day, to also convey, I think, the more contemporary and modern messages around our political positions and what we want to say in terms of promoting economy and business in Ireland, as Ireland is a place to do business and things like that. So it's an incredible opportunity for Ireland as well to engage with international partners.
You mentioned there about the ministers, at the government level, people going out to share the message of Ireland and St. Patrick. What aspects of Irish culture and traditions do you think are most meaningful to share with international students that have maybe never experienced Ireland before? Is there anything prominent aspects of culture or traditions that people should know about, or it would be a good way to lead them closer to Ireland?
Well, I think, there are a couple of angles maybe to come at that. From the purely perhaps cultural perspective, and building those types of ties and understandings, which in a way at a people to people level are probably the best basis on which to kind of build your relations. To use Slovakia as an example, and when we were discussing with the students earlier on, and we heard wonderful music, and we will hear it again. I think Irish music in particular has resonates, I think, with a global audience. Sometimes it's difficult to put in words why that is, but it does seem to speak at a very visceral and an emotional level with people. But I would speculate. When I arrive here in Bratislava, I go to Bratislava Castle. One of the first exhibitions you see is on Celtic history, and of course the Celts migrated westwards to Ireland. I think in between 1000 and 1000 BC and afterwards. So clearly, when we go right back to our own ancestors, we do share, a common links as well in that regard, and I'm sure that feeds our kind of a subconscious and emotive reactions to music. At a political level as well, I think our what we speak about as Ireland is what we speak to as Ireland also draws on the experience, our national experiences, and the experiences of our diaspora, which I think we treasure our global community, and that's incredibly important to us. But we're also conscious that the reason why people moved out of Ireland, was often under extremely difficult circumstances. The famine in the 1800s and even through the 20th century, emigration to the United States was still, and other parts of the world, but particularly the United States, like Slovakia indeed as well, and very, very big diaspora community in the United States through emigration in the 20th century in particular. Our experience of famine really informs our approach at the United Nations, our commitment to human rights. In our development program, there's a very strong focus still on those most in need and on hunger and poverty, which again, I think come very genuinely from our own national experience. Similarly, the experience of working to bring peace to the island of Ireland, that's an ongoing, doesn't stop. The process of reconciliation is ongoing. I think it's often, that's one of the most important messages, is that, it's still a process. It is a peace process. We had the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, of course, but the underlying work in terms of bringing communities together, a reconciliation process, still plays an immense issue of daily concern for us domestically. But we also try to share our experiences of peace building and reconciliation where appropriate in other parts of the world. Colombia has been an example, and we also Israel and Palestine, for example. We often have people visiting to learn from our experiences in that context as well.
Do you see any when we have cultural or heritage exchange? Sometimes people look at differences, but sometimes it might be better to look at, are there the similarities? So do you see any similarities between Slovak and Irish culture, Slovak and Irish history? Do you see any similarities there at all?
Yeah, there are resonances. I would say it's early days, and I'd sort of almost reluctant to kind of speak in too much general terms about Slovakia overall. But there have been certain moments where we saw, I touched briefly upon, obviously, going well back. I mean, kind of Celtic roots is something that we share in common, and we've sort of brushed against each other in different experiences. I'd say, obviously, being part of a foreign monarchy, for example, at various points has been a huge part of Slovak history between the Habsburgs and the Hungarians and the Austro-Hungarian. You've seen an awful lot of different, I suppose, you've experienced the feeling of being ruled from abroad, and the challenges that can bring. I remember also there was quite a lot of interest in Ireland in the when you became independent from the monarchy in the early 20th century. A lot of Irish commentators at that time, and our own independence followed shortly afterwards, were pointing, at the time it was the Czechoslovaks can do it, why can't we? So there was a lot of eyes in that direction. And I think probably in a way there was the 20th century represented maybe almost an unwanted pause because of the very specific experiences of Czechoslovakia, obviously under communist rule. We lost an opportunity to build that momentum through the 20th century, which I think has been really reinvigorated now as we find ourselves together in the European Union and finding, including through, networks that we are speaking through today. But, this type of collaboration has become almost part of our daily lives again. I'm discovering it as I go through Slovakia and I visit different places. Everywhere I go, I discover there's some new element or network of cooperation, often being facilitated or funded by the European Union. And I think it's a really important message for us too, as we will have an EU presidency later this year. So what we want to do is to also, I think, promote and to celebrate the incredibly positive effect that European Union membership has had for our individual countries and our economic trajectories and our the I suppose daily lives of our people, but also how it has brought us together as well at a people-to-people basis. And it's I actually sat. I was in Brussels in 2004. We had the EU presidency then. That was the moment at which, of course, the EU enlarged at that time. But the nature of the working group that I was in meant that literally from the 30th of April when we met, there were 15 in the room, and we met one day later and there were 25. And, I actually, it's very difficult to talk about that still without feeling a little bit emotional about it. I think particularly the times that we live in now. It was an incredibly important moment, I think, and it happened under an Irish presidency as well, which was just incredibly, a special thing for us as well to be part of that day of welcomes. And I think there's an awful lot of positive things that the EU has become so invisible to the sense that everything that it does well we take for granted, and I think we maybe need to take a step back sometimes and remember just again, like the network we're speaking with today, all of the different types of academic, research, cultural collaboration, quite aside from the political high politics that we read about in the newspapers during very challenging times. It's important to mark these things too.
You mentioned there about collaboration on the European level. Do you see any opportunities for stronger collaboration between Irish universities and Slovak universities, for example? How do you see that?
Yeah, well, like I said, it's been a journey of discovery for me, because you don't arrive in country necessarily with a full inventory of every cooperation that's happening between universities. So it's been a real education for me to know exactly what has been going on, and I've discovered in visiting Banska Bystrica, Matija Bell, I'm here in Trnava today, Comenius, of course, I see in Bratislava. I'll travel to Košice next week. That there are an awful lot of really good collaborations and academic partnerships, I suppose, work ongoing under various programs, whether that's Horizon Europe, whether that's Erasmus Plus, and whether Creative Europe plays a role as well. I mean, all sorts of different angles to how these things come about. And I think it's interesting for me coming in as I'm supposed to have an overview of international relations or relations between Ireland and Slovakia, that it's interesting to see, perhaps, I think a lot of these collaborations come from the excellent networking that you as academics do, and your contacts and your networks. And I think that is the real genesis of these things. I don't think necessarily that it helps for embassies or others to get in the way or sort of try to get in your space. But I do think that there's probably a way of reflecting in much broader terms just the scale and the scope of the collective mass of cooperation between universities. And I think that it's when you take it all together, it's impressive actually. And I think particularly again with the EU presidency in light, it's a good opportunity to, particularly where these things are happening under EU frameworks, to give indeed greater daylight to these issues as well.
Yeah, and within our Creative EU network, we have an opportunity to share culture, and today we have some live music from James Evans. And James, you're working on a new Irish music project. Do you want to share briefly about that before you close us out with a new song?
Indeed, my oldest son is 21, very talented musician. He's taken after me, I'm proud to say. He's playing violin. He likes more of the jazz kind of style, but I like to keep to my Celtic roots and keep it sort of Celtic and Irish, and I love it. It's my heartbeat, where music, where the soul wants to express itself, where words cannot, this comes out through music. And I think that's the essence of Irish music, is where is stories to be told, and there's a lot of joy as well. And I think joy is freedom, and and it really unites people in music. It's a song I would love to share. It's called "Song for Ireland." Is that right? Walking all the day near tall towers where falcons build their nest. Silver winged they fly, they know the call of freedom in their breasts. Soar black head against the sky with twisted rocks that run down to the sea. Living on your western shore, so a summer sunset asked for more. I stood by your Atlantic sea and sang a song for Ireland, talking all the day with two friends who try to make you stay, telling jokes and news, singing songs to pass the night away. Watch the Galway salmon run like silver dancing, darting in the sun. Living on your western shore, so a summer sunset asked for more. I stood by your Atlantic sea, sang a song for Ireland. I sang a song for Ireland.
That was great, beautiful. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
And maybe if I can have one more question now connected with the music, because as you told, the music and generally the art connects people all over the world. What is your favorite Irish? Maybe if you have already some Slovak band or musician or someone. I don't know if you had opportunity, because it's really short time you have been appointed at your position. So I don't know if you have already some Slovak musician you like.
Well, I do, but I live up the road. Yeah, well, I've encountered, because I live up the road from the building where Yaro Philip, I think, am I correct,
Yeah.
lived. I was very curious because I saw this name. I said, "Who was this person?" And obviously, I looked up one of the songs, which I know is very present in the kind of popular songs around 1989 in particular. So I think I really enjoyed that. I've lost Dobotwashka, isn't it? I think into the bag. So I've encountered that. I really like that song. It's a very simple.
I'm from Ireland, because I grew up on YouTube. I have to say.
All of this. I mean, would I choose one in particular from Ireland? I don't think I have a specific one from Ireland. I'd have to say. I mean, I think it's I really enjoy just the context in which you listen to traditional Irish music as well. I think it can take its own energy anywhere you are, and I think it's one of the more, perhaps maybe I don't know. It's hard to think. I think of a different traditional music. I think sometimes you hear some melodic similarities, but the fact that it takes place so informally and often in a pub setting, and you don't always have to be quietly listening. It's a bit of a mixture. I think the social setting of Irish traditional music is maybe a little bit more unique, and I think leads to its portability globally as well, which I think is a big thing. But I wouldn't pick one out. Danu, I mean, I can just say what I was listening to this week. So as I was preparing for St. Patrick's Day, there's a wonderful group called Danu, for example. Many great traditional groups, and it's I suppose it's one of the great benefits of the age that we live in now, whether you're through iMusic or Spotify, that all of these things are so easily findable. But I do think actually maybe sometimes there's a danger. I think we were discussing earlier on downstairs that there's a danger that search engines and algorithms maybe all channel us all in the same direction, and there's some wonderful groups like the Pogues and all the global superstars that we have, and our cultural program is so good. They're amazing. But there are many other kind of smaller traditional groups as well that are worth looking up, and they are accessible now. That's the thing. You won't always be actively led there, but if you start with Danu in your start engine, for example, just they're on my mind from this week. That will take you in all sorts of different directions to some of the other traditional groups that are available as well. So I'd recommend that.
What would you maybe export from Ireland to Slovakia to Slovak people or young people as well, generally? What would you export? The music is maybe the one of it, because it's really great.
Well, yeah, of course. Although I one thing on music, by the way, and I'm sorry, I'm not answering your question directly here, but I wanted to say it when you mentioned the music, is that I think in another area of EU culture that's really important this year is the Trenchine City of Culture, actually. So, I mean, I had meant to mention it even earlier in the day when we were speaking, because that was a really transformative experience for Dublin when we had it a very long time. We've had Cork and Galway as well. Actually, have had the City of Culture at various points in time. So, but I couldn't help smiling, and I think again it reminded me a little bit of Ireland in terms of where in a sense, the size of our populations. We also have quite small communities, so I was quite impressed to attend the opening of the Trenchine City of Culture and be addressed by the mayor, as we are in all of our eminences, and he spoke on stage, and they did all the formalities. And then he was later in the evening, during the opening concert, playing the drums in the very well-known local punk rock band. I think that closeness between politics, music, and society, I don't think we need to. I mean, we don't need to export that per se. I think it's something that seems to be very apparent here as well. And everywhere I've asked, I have a classical music background as well. Everywhere I have asked, I mention it. Do you know a good choir? Do you have a singing lesson? I've struggled to find somebody who can't give me a contact number for a musician or for a lesson here or there. So I think that's a really, really strong. The cultural and musical scene here is, I think, incredibly strong, actually. So that's definitely something. I think you miss elements of our food. I think we both have strong agricultural sectors, but we both have strengths in different areas. So maybe we should trade our different agricultural products slightly more actively, I think. But it's been a wonderful experience in Slovakia so far. Anyway.
Dear Mr. Devine, thank you very much for that truly inspiring conversation, as well as for sharing your perspectives on Irish culture and your personal views on Slovakia and Slovak culture. I sincerely appreciate your time and your openness. I hope we will have the opportunity to meet again together next year to celebrate St. Patrick's Day with our students and teachers. I am already looking forward to